The next question. The city's aquatics task force reviewed the current state of aquatics facilities in El Segundo and recommended a replacement pool or reconstruction of the plunge. They also looked at upgrades to the smaller community pools. Plaza El Segundo donated $1.5 million toward improvements. What would you like to see done to improve the aquatics facilities in El Segundo? Mr. Burns.
Oh, I'd like the city to re-examine or look at the capital programs with some of the new revenues coming out of the power plant, the $3 to $6 million. There's some potential there for improvement. I'd like to look at the Acacia Pool, the West Acacia Park and Pool. Right now is sitting, the pool is empty. The fence around the park doesn't serve the west end of the residents with the recreation needs that are necessary for them. I'd like to look at improving the plunge, but one other element that I think is important that we need to examine is creating a community task force to examine the problem. It's not just a city problem or a school problem. This is a community need, and we need to work with corporations, other partnerships, grants, and other programs out there that could fund these. We need to look for innovation. We need to look for community support. We need to look for leadership from the schools and the city and partner to solve this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. If you are elected or re-elected, what is the single most important city council action you will try to bring about and why? Mr. Burns.
Well, one of the elements under the radar that I think is most important is a community warning system. For the past 5 years, I worked with former Mayor Pro Tem John Gaines, and he was very passionate about this. We had an exercise in December 2005. We looked at the city's ability to communicate with the residents. We were only to communicate with about 10% at any given time. The Edison problem magnified that situation. If we cannot communicate with 240 residents in a small crisis, then imagine what it's going to be like in a severe crisis. I would like to see the city to look at a multimodal, robust system to alert the community of a crisis. We're sandwiched between LAX, a refinery, and major systems. And although El Segundo is a very safe community, we do live in a very vulnerable environment. And so this is one element that I will look at when I'm elected to the council. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question. Recognizing that the business community generates the majority of city revenue, what strategies would you support to retain and encourage business development? Mr. Burns.
Well, one of the elements under the radar that I think is most important is a community warning system. For the past 5 years, I worked with former Mayor Pro Tem John Gaines, and he was very passionate about this. We had an exercise in December 2005. We looked at the city's ability to communicate with the residents. We were only to communicate with about 10% at any given time. The Edison problem magnified that situation. If we cannot communicate with 240 residents in a small crisis, then imagine what it's going to be like in a severe crisis. I would like to see the city to look at a multimodal, robust system to alert the community of a crisis. We're sandwiched between LAX, a refinery, and major systems. And although El Segundo is a very safe community, we do live in a very vulnerable environment. And so this is one element that I will look at when I'm elected to the council. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question. There has been interest in building a new privately run and financed senior assisted living facility in El Segundo. A possible location for this facility is the Imperial Avenue School. Would you support the rezoning and development of this site? Mr. Burns.
I support it. I did a little research on this, and I would support that it needs vetting and with all involved parties. But one element that I think the city needs to look at before such a decision is made is the Torrance Ordinance enacted in 1995. There was an abuse of the system. There was a monopolizing of the ambulance services for private transfers to hospitals. The city would need to examine the impact on 9/11 services. But I think one other important element here is communication with the community is essential. Communicating with all the stakeholders involved is crucial. I wasn't even aware that Mr. Bush was having discussions 4 years ago, but I think that reinforces to the rest of the community that we need to share those discussions with the community. We need to let the community know when these kinds of discussions are going on, and I think that's the most crucial element in this race is communication, so the community is invested in these types of decisions. I support special needs in our planning. We need to examine that. Private facility is a good thing. City should not be a gift to taxpayer funds. And then you need to look at private-public partnerships like the Air Force Base, which was successful. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question. With several major projects having come on stream in the last 5 years, the city has seen a tremendous amount of development activity. Do you think the activity level has been too high, too low, or just right? Would you support additional major projects planned for the city, or do you want to slow down the rate of growth? And growth is highlighted. Mr. Burns.
I'm a process person, so I like to see a good plan. I'm in for moderate growth. I like the pay-as-you-go approach the city has towards its policy. But I think really we need to plan and forecast. And again, in that, the planning department, we saw the impacts with just 5 developments. But what the bigger element, again, in reinforcing is communication and support. The community needs to get itself wrapped around, and the council needs to communicate with the community, let them know these projects are coming in. We don't want to lose our Mayberry roots, and I think some of the modern development projects that are coming in are starting to get the concern of the community about what our look and feel is going to be for the next decade or 20 years. So I think it's essential, and we need to examine the impact on public safety. As new developments come in larger density, these also affect the false alarms and other call volumes that our law enforcement and fire departments have to address. So again, it comes into good communication, good planning, and good foresight. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this will be the last question because we're at 7:35. How would you revitalize the Smoky Hollow area, the area between Grand and El Segundo Boulevard? And would you support mixed-use, residential and commercial development? Mr. Burns.
I don't know if I could commit to mixed use. It's a good idea, but again, I think it really goes back into assessing and doing a real good, thorough examination of the impacts. There's a density of hazardous materials and chemical manufacturers in there. The proximity to the refinery needs to be examined. But also, one of the things that may benefit that is I work at a university, and I've seen the benefit of working with university students in public and private partnerships. So bringing in students and interns who are working on their thesis for public policy and urban development may enrich the city. The area is old, so you have to examine the cleanup of those old businesses that have been there since World War II. And again, I think study and forecast is essential. Chamber of Commerce, the community, really, again, communication plays a major role in being able to support that endeavor. And then you have parking. The city has to solve its parking problem before any long-term or other density projects are put into that area. If you can't solve the parking problem downtown, if you have impact on residential, the new growth in Smoky Hollow is going to be a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. And that would be the end of the questions. Each candidate now will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. We're starting in reverse order, so we're starting with Mr. Burns.
Well, thank you. I'd like to thank the audience for their participation, the El Segundo Chamber and the League of Women Voters. The decision our voters will make in a few weeks will have a direct impact on the city's future. I trust the town's voters to make sure this election is about selecting those who have invested in El Segundo, who best represents us, people who are progressive, innovative, and responsive leaders. I have a proven and consistent record as a local leader, a manager, facilitator, and program pioneer. I will work with anybody, any group, and have proven a trusted record of commitment to our city and community. Communication is essential. LAX impacts, parking, and engaging our communities are essential issues for the community. We have the public safety and recreational services. I think we have the best in the area. I'm committed to maintaining our valued services and looking progressively towards the future. To that end, I created and implemented the city's CERT program in 2000. I directed the Super Saturday CPR annual event and its volunteers for nearly a decade. I established several grant programs, the El Segundo Community Alert radio station. I brought in over $2 million of federal grants replacing the fire and police mobile radio systems, equipping our first responders for any major disaster or terrorist attack in the region, and I acquired the new urban search and rescue truck, which will support El Segundo for the next decade. These grants save jobs and valued city programs. I seek excellence, and that quest is best realized by partnerships. I will bring improved communication and transparency to how our council conducts business, the business of the people, and work with our schools and our businesses. I ask that you let my experience, my dedication, my passion, and integrity serve you. I appreciate your time and consideration. I respectfully and graciously ask for your support and your vote. Please check out my views on my website at electburns.net. I appreciate your active participation in making El Segundo the best we can be. Thank you.
Thank you.